Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Narrative Dissonance on Unsafe Space. I'm Carter Laren. Today is Monday, May 9th, 2022. Narrative Dissonance is a show that we do here on Unsafe Space, all about questioning the mainstream narrative. You should be watching us at unsafespace.com if you can, because that's the best place, but we're also on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, Utreon, maybe somewhere I'm forgetting, DLive. This show has been live at 11 a.m. Pacific every week, but next week we are changing, and from every week thereafter, we're changing to 2 p.m. Pacific. I hope that doesn't screw too many people over, but I think it will be better. Hopefully we'll be able to get some guests who have day jobs on the East Coast, and it should make it easier. So next week, when you show up at 11 a.m. Pacific and wonder where we are only 3 hours away. Also, tomorrow, I think there's a live episode of 451 coming out with Alex Misselli, and maybe a live Rebel Civics on Wednesday or tomorrow, sometime this week. You can follow us on Twitter at _unsafespace. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share the content with a friend. And one last thing. We have our next book club. Our last book club was The Gulag Archipelago, the abridged version. I can't recommend the book enough. Thomas did an excellent job on book club. So if you just want an overview, you can go check that episode out. But as intimidating as the 3-volume unabridged version is, the abridged version is actually not that bad. I would totally recommend it, even if you are intimidated by long books. It's not that long. It's an easy read, and it's a worthwhile read. Our next book is June 12th. The book club day is June 12th, and the book is House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, hosted by Alex Misselli. She'll be the advocate for that month's book. So go ahead and get started on that if you want. Okay, that's enough for all the housekeeping stuff. This week we have two of my favorite panelists returning. First, welcome Juliet, TruthSeeker Juliet. You might know her from her work on Gab, where she exposes what Yuri Bezmenov called ideological subversion in the West, or you may know her from her frequent appearances on the Independent Gang podcast, or right here on Narrative Dissonance. Her Gab handle is TruthSeeker8487, so you can follow her there. Juliet, welcome.
Hi, it's good to be back.
Oh. Thanks for coming. Yeah, it's good to see you as well. How you doing? You have a good weekend?
I did. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Happy Mother's Day indeed. And someone who has never been on the show with Juliet. They've both been on independently, but I'm looking forward to this. Let's bring on Elle, aka SomeBitchIKnow. You may know her from her relentless research at SomeBitchMedia and the personification of its tagline, Cite your sources, or GTFO. She's helped explode mainstream narratives around the COOF, the 2020 election, Jeffrey Epstein, and other issues. And you've seen her here on Unsafe Space and other places on the interwebs. Elle, welcome.
Hi. How are y'all?
Doing well. Elle, there's one place we're not going to see you anymore as of, I guess, a few minutes ago. Why don't you tell us about that? Let's just start with that.
About 40 minutes ago, it was deplatformed from the 10th fucking platform. Pardon my French. I realize this is a lot more of a,
It's not really a family show. It's okay.
Well, that's okay. I'm not kid friendly. Anyways, my Discord just got banned for, according to them, I got a terms of service warning a little bit before that, about an hour before that. Actually, 1 hour exactly. I wonder if that has something to do with it. For participating in the Foxhole Discord, which Foxhole is, of course, a alternative to Twitch, YouTube, etc. That's wonderful. And their Discord got banned about an hour prior, and then exactly 1 hour later, my Discord got banned. So that's really great. I really love it. I'm super excited. Happy to be here on Unsafe Space.
Well, hey, because I'm in your Discord, maybe our Discord will get banned soon, and we'll all just be banned. I apologize if my participation in Elle's Discord gets our Discord banned, everyone in our Discord, but hey,
Sorry.
It's not her fault, it's not my fault, and it's Discord's fault. So
we're too dangerous.
Yeah, really. And did they say what it was? Just
so I've got Discord it says, hello. Discord is focused on maintaining a safe and secure environment for our community. We found your account to be in violation of our terms of service or community guidelines. As a result, we've disabled your account for the following reason. Your account posted misleading, or harmful misinformation, or was involved in servers dedicated to this content. Sincerely, Discord Trust and Safety.
Is there an
So
appeal
you can-
process, or is that it?
I don't give a fuck. I'm not doing it. So
I'm just wondering if they bother.
I mean, it's the same thing as I got banned from Twitter officially when I got banned from Twitter with my like 120 something follower account for making a joke about suicide by jet ski, which was hilarious, by the way, but certainly not the most offensive joke I've ever made. I don't care. I refuse to we knew that our days were numbered on Discord anyways. It's just a matter of when, not if. So today was that day.
Where are you going to go?
I don't know yet. There's a few options. So,
we should
we'll
talk
see.
because we're going to plan to go someplace.
Yeah,
We'll try and maybe we'll coordinate and go to the same place.
We're gonna have a meeting of the minds pretty much after this stream ends with some people, because other people who have Discords, Providence's Discord, Silent Act Great, quite a few people who are just guilty by association with me also got banned. And typically speaking, I'm one of the more banned people on the internet. I've been banned from PayPal, Twitter, YouTube, etc. But when all of those things happen, it always happens just kind of to me alone, and I'm able to pivot and deal with it, and it's kind of comes with the territory. However, with this affecting so many other people, I want to make sure that I take their thoughts into consideration, and that we all move together as a unit and make sure that every single time one of these things happens, it's the unfortunate kind of reality that this sort of thing happens quite a bit. But anytime something like this happens, something better is right around the corner, and I firmly believe that. But I feel very sorry for Chris and Claire. I mean, so many people that are just guilty by association got also banned today, and I'm more pissed about that than I am about my own account getting banned, to be honest. You kind of get desensitized to it after a while, but I know that a lot of people who haven't had to deal with that sort of deplatforming yet, it's a rude awakening when it finally happens to you. So
yeah, the guilt by association sucks because you're knowing that you're taking that risk. Right. And so there's some kind of knowledge. You're like, okay, yeah. I know I'm me. I'm going to get banned. But it's unfair for the people who are just hanging out.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is anytime, like, the best thing that ever happened to me, genuinely, it sucked at the time, but right after I exposed a bunch of voter fraud, which has been vindicated time and time again by 2000 Mules, by the way. Lovely. We're going to talk about it tomorrow night on Twitch. And maybe I'll get banned from Twitch too. I don't know. When I got banned for that, it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. Granted, it sucked at the time, and I wasn't able to have as wide of an impact with my discoveries there because, they, cut me off. But it taught me to be more resilient and to not put all my eggs in one basket. And this is kind of another one of those moments where Discord was very convenient. It had a lot of interoperability with other apps, but it is not the only platform out there. And by golly, if there's not one that suits all of our needs, then we'll build our own. Like it comes down to that. And I want to make sure that everyone who is guilty by association, who hangs out in like my community, our community rather, that they have a place to go and talk, and that they know they can be in a safe space, ironically enough. So
well, I know there are open source alternative starting points.
A lot of people are saying
if we had to build our own.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, right, exactly. I've looked into, I actually have a backup server on Keybase. Keybase is pretty good. There's Gilded. There's a few options, but again, I'm going to take everyone else's thoughts and, input into consideration with this, because it's not just about me, and it never has been. So we're going to move together as a unit wherever we go.
Well,
so if you got your Discord banned today, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. We're going to get it banned eventually, even if we don't get it banned today. We kind of know it's coming.
If you are a member of my Discord, you probably will get banned today.
Yeah, I was a member of your Discord, so
sayonara.
It's okay. So
sorry, I didn't mean to go on a rant.
No, that's cool. that's I mean, it happened right before the show. It's worth talking about.
Yeah, like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah. So. All right. Let's let Juliet tell us. Juliet, what's the most important story about which mainstream media has been misleading us in the past week?
All right. Okay. So this one, I'm going to go with, I got it. Actually, I'm confused now. I was going to try to tell you who made the article. I saw it on Zero Hedge, but apparently it's also on Epic Times, like the same article. So maybe they work together, but, they had some new footage I've never seen before from the Capitol on J6, and it is really like, I mean, it was shocking to me. So, can we play that video?
Yeah, let's just play that video. It's not that long. By the way, my notes, the person on Rumble who posted this video, just to give them attribution, is a guy named Epoch Joe. I don't know who it is, but if you want to go follow someone on Rumble, that's the guy who posted it. So let's see. So should we pause? Let's just tell people what's happening for people who are listening. Do you want to walk them through what's happening right now, Juliet?
So we're seeing a bunch of the protesters. This is a view from inside the Capitol building, and the door is open, and there's a guy standing there violently pulling people into the building. And you even see one of them kind of try to sidestep and not come in, but I mean, he is actively yanking them through that doorway.
Yeah. All right, let's keep watching. So again, I don't know if people can hear that, but if you can't, there's a woman yelling, "Stop, stop, no, no, you pushed us in, you were pushing us in." And the man, Juliet, you want to do the big reveal? The man pulling people and pushing them?
Yeah, so this man that this person is yelling at is wearing an earpiece, like a classic, government guy earpiece. It's very visible.
That's not suspicious at all.
No, and I mean, can you imagine though I haven't seen this anywhere except for those two sources, but can you imagine for these poor people that are being prosecuted, if any of them were part of the crowd getting yanked through the door and now they're being prosecuted for, rushing into the Capitol building? It's just, I mean, we all know this happened, but I haven't seen evidence this striking before this video.
Yeah. Should we watch more, or is that good? Should we stop?
I think that's good. That was the really striking part of it.
I mean, I guess from that perspective, is it all right? I just want to play devil's advocate. Could it be a hearing aid? Because old guys with hearing aids like to push people into Capitol buildings.
I guess so.
Okay.
I'm just like, every time I watch it, I'm just like, what on earth is happening there? They're just yanking them through the door.
Yeah.
I mean, it just looks like chaos, and then also in the first part of that video, there's just a ton of guys wearing MAGA hats just standing around, like right inside the door.
Is there any knowledge of who that dude is? Like, has anyone? I see that he's got a hashtag, which is James Dean wannabe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know
who this is.
I'm sure 4chan's already dug into it. I'm not even. I'm not even kidding.
No,
4chan's probably already on it. Kisty, let me know. Kisty's in the chat. Kisty, have they looked it up yet? I'm sure they have.
Let's see.
We will find you.
Kisty's my 4chan expert.
Yeah. I went over to the chance, but I don't see
anything at the top, but this was something from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Beverly says, I still don't understand how to use 4chan. Well, it's not for everybody. 4chan is not for the faint of heart, but to be quite honest, it's the best place to go when something is breaking because they're on it. It's weaponized autism at its finest. It's wonderful.
It is. Yeah. I don't see, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see anything. Oh, well. We won't spend our time on the show looking through 4chan. But
that'd be a hell of a show.
this is interesting in light. Yeah, that'll be all the show. In light of the fact that a lot of these people have been in jail for months or longer, over a year, on a misdemeanor trespassing charge. I don't know. Has everyone been charged yet? Even, or are they?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Process.
I mean, I guess they have to have been charged with something, right?
not everyone has been charged with anything yet. It's
So-
kind of the whole thing, and a lot of people who are being held on like misdemeanor trespassing charges and things like that. Usually things that would
Right.
keep you in jail for, I don't know, a max of like 4 hours. So
Right.
I honestly have not been staying on top of the goings on with the cases as much as I should have, but some people haven't been charged with like anything.
Yeah, that was my understanding, but I haven't been paying attention either. But these are people who, I mean, if there's a right to a speedy trial, you'd think misdemeanor trespassing, a year in jail, maybe that's violation of the right.
We're coming up on like a year and a half. That's the thing is, we're in middle of May.
Yeah.
And again, it's misdemeanor trespassing is the charge that a lot of people have ended up being, actually charged with. Because believe it or not, insurrection is not a legal charge. So there we go. And no access to their lawyers to Sophocles. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there's not access to lawyers?
A lot of them haven't been able to contact anyone like on a regular basis or a consistent basis.
We should try and find. You haven't been paying attention. We should find someone who has been and chat with them at some point, because it's one of those things that I feel guilty about not paying attention to, because I know that there's a bunch of people suffering for this, and they shouldn't be like people. We should all know their names, the people that are in jail and dealing with this.
Well, you can access the list on the FBI's website, but it takes a while to get through it. But
yeah. Well, that's a good story, Juliet. And I wish more people were talking about it. I don't know what else to say about it other than, damn. That's where we live.
Well said. Damn.
That's my insight. Damn. That's where we live. Like, that's what's going on. All right.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much to say about it other than that. So yeah. All right, Elle. What do you think is we're being misled on?
Well, I don't necessarily have something. Well, I mean, the ongoing issues with Russia and Ukraine being one. And over the last week, we've seen 3 very high-profile people in particular just heading right to the middle of Ukraine. And most recently, yesterday, I don't know if y'all saw this, but Bono went to YouTube, or Bono of U2, fame, infamy, that has all these links to Global Citizen, who's always right there in the middle of anything going on with NGOs and nonprofits. He's a bad dude. But Bono went to a Kiev bomb shelter, and they sang a little rendition of what is it? "Stand by Me" in a Ukrainian bomb shelter. And just the day before, Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, actually, I guess it was the same day, went to Ukraine to meet with the First Lady of Ukraine. And then just like a week before that, Nancy Pelosi showed up in Ukraine to receive a medal from Zelensky. And I just find these U2 putting on a concert in a bomb shelter, like First Ladies don't go to war zones to drop off flowers. That's just
not typically.
That's a preposterous. Because I have here a screenshot of this to share, but I saw this originally on Instagram of all places. But here, let me share screen, because the ongoing, I guess it's a lot of like right-wing media, conservative media. This is from Newsmax. U.S. First Lady Jill Biden made an unannounced visit to Western Ukraine on Sunday, hosting a surprise Mother's Day meeting with the nation's First Lady, Olena Zelensky, as Russia presses its punishing war in the eastern regions. It's just like so much. It's just a bunch of bullshit, honestly, is the best way I can describe it.
It's so discontinuous from the shots of her husband in like war gear, like acting like he's out there,
he's in his sweater with Pelosi to give her a medal. And then you have this is U2 in the Kiev bomb shelter. Oh shit, sorry. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but yeah, they're putting on concerts in Kiev, and I just find this whole thing preposterous. So it's not necessarily like one particular news story, but just something that I'm paying attention to over the last week is like Bono's putting on a concert. Nancy Pelosi's there. I'm not going to play the music. I don't want you to get like copy stricken or anything like that. But Nancy Pelosi is visiting to get a medal. Jill Biden's dropping off flowers during this punishing war in Ukraine. I just find it funny.
Maybe the bomb shelter is the name of a club that's very popular in Ukraine, and he's at the bomb shelter playing.
He's a washed up fella. So his involvement, Bono's involvement, is honestly one of the things. Hang on, I'm pulling up something else to show you guys. Bono's involvement is always a kind of a good litmus test of what's like the globalists are focused on, and like his involvement with an organization called Global Citizen, which is another one of those just another one of those NGAs. They give festivals.
That's a phrase that should scare you in and of itself, but okay.
Yeah, here. Okay, so here we go. Let me pull this up. Like this is I understand that there's like the farm aid and a lot of different celebrities never want to miss the opportunity to come together and sing Imagine by John Lennon off key, or the remember the Imagine rendition. But here's Global Citizen back in 2019 with Hosier, the guy who sang Take Me to Church, and Bono. It's part of the Global Fund, it's hooked up to the Global Fund. It's always kind of a litmus test for what they want the people who are big into celebrity worship are focused on. It's always interesting to me. Global Citizen is one of the big ones, and they were the ones that were pushing for everyone to. I think they did the Safe at Home campaign, Safer Together at Home. I'm pretty sure that was Global Citizen, and they're always on top of it in the worst way possible. So that's what I'm focusing on. Until getting deplatformed today from ye old Discord. But that's pretty much what I got. The punishing war in Ukraine trudges on.
I think a lot of these washed up celebrities. So just for the Gen Zers, you might not know YouTube. Bono, you might know Bono from raping your iPhone years earlier. That was Bono.
I had a U2 edition iPod back in the day. It was black with the red circle, which is holy crap, that's the Global Citizen circle. Holy fuck! I just had realized that.
Whoa.
The connections were made.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
That's the Global Citizen circle. That's
yeah.
I'm just sorry. I'm having a moment here.
Well, a lot of these guys when they're famous and they get old, and the younger generations don't care about their crap anymore, and so instead of just playing concerts for older people, which they still do. They become propagandists for some leftist cause. And I think Bono he's been a propagandist for, I don't know, decades, at least 20 years.
In the middle of it. Oh, it goes way back further than that. But yeah, Global Citizen is one of those ones that it's join the movement, changing the world. It's again, the powers that be, they want you to live in a nationless, genderless, aimless, religionless. They don't want you to have any sort of they don't want you to have any sort of ties to your nation, to your community. They want you to consider yourself a global citizen. But when you do that, you remove people's identity, and that's another big push in it, another big push. And if you've been following any of my stuff, my big focus lately has been on metaverse goings on. Robert Iger, the former CEO of Disney, moved to a very little known metaverse company that manufactures is kind of a weird word to put it, but they make and sell digital avatars aimed at children, and you can be anything you want to be in the metaverse. And again, it's this, you don't want people rooted in a single identity or to feel like they know exactly who they are, and that's how you get them to buy into these fantastical whimsical worlds where nothing is grounded in reality, and they lose touch with everything going on around them, so they can just become a good little just a good little peon, little cog in the machine. So
this is reminding me of the Soviet view of people.
Demand equity.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's about molding people to be a certain way. And in fact, I remember, I wish I could, I don't have the book in front of me, but I would figure out the citation for this. But there were comments by some of these leaders that were basically they were pro thieves. They liked the thieves in the gulags because they were basically saying, well, the capitalists steal much more, and you're just, you're part of the new system. And the people that they threw in gulags and made work, they were kind of like, well, we're fixing you as a human. We're making you contribute to the communist vision of the world in a way that you wouldn't have been able to contribute before. So stop complaining
Be
that
grateful.
you're getting 3 ounces of bread a day and you have no clothes, and you're, in in Russian winters building a canal with no tools. You're contributing. You're part of our utopian society. So don't worry about it.
It is all about narrowing. It is all about narrowing points of view, and even the lexicon that people use to describe their discontent. A lot of people have been making references lately to George Orwell's 1984, and admittedly, despite being an English major, which is a $30,000 mistake I don't recommend anyone else make, but I did make that mistake. I never actually read 1984 in my studies in school, so I've actually been reading through it now. And one of the things, I'm sure I'm saying something. I'm going to reference something that pretty much everyone already knows about, but the whole newspeak is the language in 1984, which is, it's very tailored down into what's Ministry of Truth approved. And there's a quote in it in 1984 that really stuck out to me. It says, "Do you not see that the whole aim of newspeak is to narrow down the range of thought? In the end, we shall make the thought crime literally impossible because there will be no words in which to express it." And you see a lot of that happening now. You see people who, and I admittedly am guilty of doing the exact same. I'm going to close out this window if you want to.
Yep.
We can keep Global Citizen going on in the background. But one of the things that you see now is people getting censored, banned, etc. And so I admittedly have done the same, where then you want to watch what you say afterwards. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you follow TOS, which is something that literally, naively enough, or in my own naivete, right before my Discord got banned earlier, I was like, if you see anyone violating TOS, let me know. We know that our days are numbered here, but we want to protect as long as we can. But it literally doesn't matter. Like, honestly, my Discord was pretty mild. It doesn't matter. They want you to be scared that you could lose everything at any given time, and they want you to be so desperate to stay on their platforms because there are no alternatives, or that you don't have your community on their platform, that you'll stop thinking in certain ways. You'll self-censor before you even express your own sort of thought, and that's what we see more and more, and it's honestly terrifying.
That's exactly the goal. I don't want to spoil 1984 for you if you haven't finished it, but
I'm about halfway through.
So. Okay. I mean, that is exactly the goal. And we know this about language. Languages are words are labels for concepts, and you can't think without abstract concepts. You can't think on any real human level without concepts, and conceptual thought requires language. It's not like we evolved as conceptual beings and then someone was like, hey, how about we write stuff down? Like, that evolved in tandem with language. You can't evolve your thinking without also evolving the labels for concepts. And it is scary. I catch myself doing it.
We all do.
Self-censoring a little bit. Yeah. And that's absolutely the goal. It's absolutely the goal. And you'll notice if they ban a word or a phrase and the community finds a substitute for that word or phrase, eventually they'll just ban that, because they're trying to ban the concept, not the language. That's the problem. It's the same reason that you saw social justice warriors, they called themselves SJWs early on. I remember, like, maybe 10 years ago having a conversation with a woman who was a self-described SJW, arguing because she had just graduated from college recently, and she was very, very much about how awesome social justice was. She called herself an SJW. Fast forward now, it's a derogatory term. You're not allowed to say SJW, but I mean, you can, but they complain about it being used. But it doesn't matter what you call them. You could call them anything. They don't want a label, because a label allows you to identify them as a group that has a particular ideology, and that's not allowed.
It's I studied, actually, the proudest C I ever made in college. It's actually the only C I made in college. Was in my survey of critical theory class, which is ironic as all get out. On the other side of college, I didn't quite realize how Marxist quite a lot of the thinking is. But we studied a philosopher, or I guess just one of the like French thinkers, Jacques Derrida, who spoke a lot about signs and signifiers and kind of how humans describe things. And the difference between a sign and a signifier is your sign is whatever, like say I'm trying to describe to you like this Sharpie. The sign is the Sharpie. The signifier are all the different ways that I describe the Sharpie to you. And unless you can see it yourself, the breakdown in between what I'm explaining to you and what it actually is kind of like where you get lost in kind of like being able to express yourself. And as we narrow down our signifiers, we're unable to express thought on a more complex level, which is, again, it's Orwellian. It truly is Orwellian. And again, I felt bad for making Ministry of Truth and jokes and things like that and not actually having read the book. So I've been doing that in my spare time. Do y'all ever do that? You just make references? I do that with movies. I just read the summary because I don't like to watch movies. But like, I feel like I'd be a poser if I didn't read 1984.
I don't usually do that. I mean, if I do that, I usually then feel so guilty about it that I have to go read the thing. Like, wait a minute. I just made a reference that I don't think I really understand. I need to go read it so that I understand it.
But no, when like a new Marvel movie comes out or whatever, I'll just go read the summary so that when someone's like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "Yeah, damn, that's crazy, bro." Like no one, like, I have no interest in watching the multiverse of madness.
I just resign I just accept the identity of being the dude who doesn't know anything about Marvel movies, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Did your superhero do something that you didn't like? I don't know.
Someone probably made a snarky comment and then did something heroic, because that is the formulaic like structure of every Marvel movie.
Right. They've taken the James Bond cliche and made it into an entire genre of superheroes.
But instead of it being campy like James Bond is, where it's like it's very much like tongue in cheek and like it's camp. Like with Marvel, they take it very seriously. Like it's very serious that they're making absolutely stupid quips in the middle of a battle for their lives and for the fate of the universe. Like, come on, bro. If you enjoy Marvel movies, whatever, I'm not gonna judge you that much, but like I'm fully on board with the whole concept of let people enjoy things. There's very few things that that are enjoyable these days. However, this is just not for me.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with people enjoying it. It's just not there's lots of things. I don't enjoy watching cricket, but that's fine. Someone does.
Well, you're just not enlightened enough to enjoy cricket. That's a smart people sport, I guess.
I think it is. I don't know.
At
least they have accents. So
it seems like, we're watching cricket.
Yeah, it's a rich person thing. It's like polo. Is it? Maybe, I don't know. The guy. Want to hear this is a dumb story unrelated to everything. The guy that used to live next door to me, I think they moved. Their kids moved away and whatever. I was having a conversation with him one day, like a couple years ago, and it turns out he was one of these people who had like 7. No, was it 7 or it was like more than that. He had like a whole stable full of polo horses. And he was totally like, he had all the polo snobbery going on, but you didn't like, I guess it was in his youth. So he was old. So he was kind of talking about how he used to do all the polo. He was the only person I ever met who actually played polo. So there you go.
I grew up riding horses, but there's 2 different ways to be like a horseback rider, and like one of them is the very poor way, which is the way I did it, and then like others are like you can spend literally as much money as you want to on horses, and it'll never be enough. And that was not, we leased my horse for like it's like not very much, and I couldn't go to too many shows because it costs a lot of money to go to horse shows, and like we just couldn't afford it. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to be involved in horseback riding stuff.
Hi, Kitty.
My daughter does riding. My daughter is like lives at the barn, and thankfully she's turned off by all of the like pretentious, expensive side of horseback riding, and she's like, I want to.
It's so much fun.
Well, she does all the like gritty stuff and likes it. So I'm like, okay, good. Go shovel stalls or whatever. That's great. That's better. It's cheaper for us. All right. Well,
no, I didn't do dressage. I did hunter jumper, and then I also did barrel racing, but we weren't very good at it. It was just fun.
I don't know someone in the chat asked. I just like I know to show up and like clap when she jumps over a thing.
It's so much fun. Like I highly like there are ways if you have kids, like it's a really great activity to get them involved in, and there are ways to do it on the cheap, because like we grew up very, very poor in like rural Alabama, and like, you know, like, granted there's horses everywhere in Alabama, but still there's ways to do it for very inexpensive, and it's super fun. It's very unique. I highly recommend maybe looking into it. But like, there will come a time where someone, you know, is like, what if you tried dressage? No, it's a gateway drug.
Right.
Way too expensive. It's a gateway
Yeah.
drug to losing all your money on horse stuff.
We've already reached the why don't we try dressage point. Yeah. It is what it is. Okay, so before we move on, I want to ask you guys a question about, you know, you brought up Ukraine and this, you know, I guess Biden and Bono and everyone else hanging out in Ukraine, and it made me think of that. This morning I heard a story on NPR. Yes, shoot me for listening to NPR, but I do listen to NPR because you got to pay attention to what the enemy is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised they've decided that they need to fall on the Walter Duranty sword, and they need to admit that he was a lying propagandist. Like, I know there's like New York Times already has like a little thing at the bottom of their page about Walter Duranty, but it's the kind of thing that the mainstream media never really, they kind of are silent about it and don't talk about it. And NPR this morning did a whole story about Walter Duranty in the context of Ukraine. Do you guys both know who Walter Duranty is, or should I?
I'm looking him up right now.
I'll
tell
go into a quick thing. So Walter Duranty might have been the 20s and 30s. So it was Stalin era. So I guess it was 30s.
Okay, yes, now I do. Okay.
He was the New York Times man in Moscow, right? He was their main dude in Moscow reporting on the Soviet Union. And because he was, many reporters have been long allied with the left. It's not new that the media isn't on the left. He was basically just a propagandist for truth. Was trying to corrupt.
Is that just me,
at the
or
time?
is that...
No, it's me too.
Okay, you cut out for a
What
second
happened?
there.
I did.
You turned into a robot.
Oh,
Briefly.
I'm back in all of my non-robotic.
Yeah, you're good now.
I'm pretty robotic normally. So yeah, what was happening at the time was, this is the time of the Holodomor. Stalin is busy starving 2 million Ukrainians, right? And you've got the kind of stuff you have going on in the Ukraine is he's trying to I think he's just trying to break their spirit. I'm not exactly sure what his goals are, but he's starving. He's taking the food away. These are the farmers. This is the breadbasket of the USSR. He's taking their food and starving he's kicking productive farmers off of their land. He's just destroying Ukraine. And you've got people eating. I mean, there's like documented cases of cannibalism happening. People eating, you know, rats and whatever, like desperately trying to survive. Millions of people starving to death. And Durante is running around and coming back and reporting back to the US. Oh, you know, there's some malnutrition. There's some people that are a little bit hungry, but no one's starving. And, you know, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, and it's all good. And like the beautiful new plan is awesome. And he's reporting things like Potemkin villages as if they're real. And meanwhile, he knows all of this. He knows this is all false. And he's doing it anyway because he's a stooge for Stalin. And he gets a Pulitzer Prize from this. He gets awarded a Pulitzer for his reporting. And not only that, when you do have reporters who, very few, but you have a couple of reporters brave enough to start reporting the truth, they all get attacked and vilified by the New York Times and Durante, and they're the ones who get marginalized. And I mentioned this, I think, last week, but there's an excellent movie. Elle, I know you don't like watching movies, but there is an excellent movie. If you want to just watch a movie, watch Mr. Jones. It was made a few years ago. It's new, and it's about a reporter who goes to Moscow and discovers the truth. And Walter Duranty is kind of one of the major players in the movie. And it will get you up to speed on that whole.
I'll watch it on double speed, maybe.
All right, you don't have to watch.
I might. I won't.
But anyway, the mainstream media is bringing this up. They're now admitting, and I'm wondering if they see what's happening in Ukraine now, and they're trying to address the issue head on, because I think a lot of people are saying, well, you guys are just propagandists now. You're just on a different side. You have different propaganda. You're still pushing in the same region, Ukraine.
Well,
and
the
I
New
think
York
they're
Times,
trying to say,
they try to have plausible deniability. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm interrupting today. Well, one of the other story that I was going to highlight that I couldn't quite figure out how to tie it in, but the New York Times just released this pretty scathing review of schools that remained closed and the effect that it had on kids. Whereas kids who remained in the classroom over the last 2 years, I think it was over the duration of 2020 that the study took place, but it might have been 2020 and 2021. But kids who remained in the classroom after the course of that period of time still saw about a 20% reduction in their, particularly in math, their aptitude. But kids who studied remotely, or studied remotely is kind of it's a loose term, but kids who learned remotely showed about a 50% showed about 50% less aptitude in math than they should have in that same span of time. And they released a pretty scathing report on that. But the New York Times has been a champion for Randy Weingarten, for the AFT, and for the school closures. And there's a lot of this like retconning, basically, and kind of cover your ass sort of reporting that's coming out now, where they're like, we're talking about it now. It's fine now. Same thing about like the Hunter Biden laptop. Granted, people won't really accept that ever really happened, but they put out a couple of articles about it, hide it on like the 5th page of their website or like on the very last page of the New York Times, and they're like, oh yeah, no, we reported on it. You're crazy.
Yeah, and then pretend that they were. I mean, the unconscionable thing here is like they're reporting on this, but they're actually the real story is involves the New York Times. They're part of the story, which is propaganda was pushed for 2 years that ended up having a harmful effect on kids. And you, as the propagandist, are now reporting on it as if you're uninvolved in this. That's not above board by any means.
Oh no, it's fine when they do it.
Right.
Have you talked about the hypocrisy of the media yet? Just imagine if the roles were reversed, Carter. Just imagine.
I know. You know what? Wait, I don't actually like when people say you can't do whataboutism, because
yes, you can, but I'm gonna make fun of it sometimes.
No, but people say make fun of whataboutism, but I think actually we're pointing out hypocrisy, which is relevant. Like I don't see why whataboutism isn't a thing.
No, I'm making a little bit of a joke about it because so many people are like, like there's like the meme of like a tombstone. It's like, here lies, conservatism. Just imagine if the roles were reversed. But while it is easy for those of us who see it a lot more clearly, that sort of kind of inconsistency in the narrative genuinely is one of the things that can be the catalyst for people to start seeing things in a very different way. It was literally what happened for me when I had my little red pill moment. It didn't happen overnight, but it was with the hurricane, I think Maria, that went through Puerto Rico. And about a year after that, after I had made all these scathing posts on Facebook that got a bunch of likes that I was super proud of, I discovered that I was completely wrong about it. And people pointing that out and like how hypocritical it was of the media, like that was what started it for me. So while I make fun of it, at the same time, there are plenty of people who maybe just need that little bit of jar, like that little bit of like a jarring like shake back to reality to start that journey for themselves. So I'll make fun of it all day long, but I also do the same thing. So
yeah, I mean, look, the reason I like
all day long.
The reason I want to point, I mean, I think it's actually super important. I was thinking about this. This is kind of back to the Walter Duranty, but you're making me think about it. There's this argument about should he get his Pulitzer revoked. And I was thinking about it, and I actually don't want him to get his Pulitzer revoked. I mean, posthumously. I want us to not.
It looks like
trust
Pulitzer
Pulitzers.
said no.
They've said but now there's it's being talked about again. They originally said no, right? But
well, in 2003,
I think I want us to not trust
they said no. So we're about 20 years out from that.
Yeah, but I think rather than revoking the reward and rewriting history, let's just not trust Pulitzer and let's not trust the New York Times. Let's stop trusting these institutions and stop giving them away to expunge the record and pretend like they're pristine. They're not. And they do this stuff. They have a history of doing this stuff. And maybe the right outcome is continued skepticism, not whitewashing the history and being like, oh, well, we revoked the Pulitzer. So now, like, yeah, millions of people died, but we fixed it because we took away the award. It's like, all right, well, that doesn't really solve the problem.
Right, absolutely. Well, like, it's interesting with him. I read a book it's called Red Famine, and hilariously enough, it's written by Anne Applebaum. I don't know if everybody saw that video like a couple weeks ago, where at a college, the guy asks her like why she didn't report on Hunter Biden's laptop, and she says she didn't think it was interesting enough to report on. So it's kind of like,
by the way, she's on the Pulitzer board, by the way.
Oh, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked.
Yeah. Sorry.
Anne Applebaum. But so that's where I learned about Walter Duranty, and he was living the high life in Moscow. Like, he is literally going to feasts every night, and there were food shortages throughout Russia. It wasn't even just Ukraine starving. I mean, that was a serious problem, and they're just showing him the time of his life. And then all the other journalists that were there, the foreign correspondents, are living in like horrible apartments, terrified to say the wrong thing. Like, they want to report on what they're hearing, but they can't because, you know, they also have this guy, like the perfect mouthpiece for the regime. But it's just very interesting.
Who gets access to Stalin? The other people don't. He can go do interviews with Stalin, which obviously in modern language we would say gets clicks. Right, like he can go get his clicks. He can go be like, oh, I talked to Stalin. Did you talk to Stalin? No, Stalin won't talk to me. Yeah, that's because you're honest and I'm not. Like, that's why. Right.
Yeah, it's insane. And like the fact that when they first tried to get his Pulitzer revoked, when all this information really started coming out, Pulitzer said no. Like, I mean, that to me was just okay, so you just have no authenticity then. Like, a Pulitzer means absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's
though.
What
it's
I
good
want.
to know.
Yes.
Good to know.
Same thing with like the Nobel Prize. So here's another one. Granted, it's a lot smaller scale, but like, you know, every year Forbes puts out like their 30 under 30 list, right?
Oh, that's like, all a scam. If you don't know
pay to be on
that.
Scam. People pay to be on that. Anytime a brand is mentioned in a positive light in the media, like Huffington Post, like there's a big expose that was done about this about 2 years ago. Like, Huffington Post was charging about like between like $50 to like $200 for like a positive brand mention in like an article. Like, New York Times, Forbes, etc., can charge thousands and thousands of dollars for that sort of thing. So any sort of like mention of anything or any sort of nomination to a list, even the bestseller list of the New York Times, like all of those things are so rigged. Nobel Prize is rigged, Pulitzer Prize is rigged, and like, it's not necessarily that it's starting to become corrupt. It's that these things have always been that way, but you start to learn how they actually work. And you know,
I don't know that I would call them all this like rigged in the way of like there's some conspiracy. It's just that there's a
way to buy influence, like not necessarily like it's the Forbes 30 under 30 list is, you know, arguably quite low stakes, but it still is like, it's not like this organic, you know, they seek out people are sponsored or they pay for it. You have to have a rich daddy or you have to know someone who has a rich daddy to get on it.
Yeah, it's money, and I would actually say for that particular list, based on what I know of it, it's influence, which money buys. It's a network. So it's like, if you know this person, you know, all you have to do to convince yourself that the 30 under 30 list is bullshit is read the bios of the people, and you realize like, this person isn't special. Why the hell are they on? It's like, oh, because they know someone or their daddy's rich or whatever, like they're rich or whatever. Like, that's why.
Oh, to have a rich dad.
So what story should we be paying attention to that we're not paying attention to? Either one. It doesn't matter who wants to answer this one.
You go first, Juliet.
Okay. All right. Hold on. I'm so old school. I'm such a boomer at heart that I print things still.
I do the same thing, although I'm older than you, so I have an excuse. But still, I do the
I've
same.
been considering getting. I don't have a printer, but I've been considering getting one for that exact reason, to have like my notes in front of me when I do like my streams and stuff. So
I don't know what
it's
it
so
is.
much better, Elle.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
It really
And you
is.
can like write shit on them. It's better than a screen. I don't know.
Highlight.
Yeah, but like printer ink is so expensive. I'm all on a budget, y'all. But I've been thinking about it.
If you care about loggers, you will buy a printer. Go ahead, Juliet.
Okay.
I've never cared about anything more, to be honest.
So let's see. Okay, yeah. So this was in the Wall Street Journal on the 8th. So yesterday. I don't even know what day it is. Headline is electricity shortage warnings grow across the US. Power grid operators caution that electricity supplies aren't keeping up with the demand amid transition to cleaner forms of energy. And then it goes on to make really dire warnings about how the West Coast is just not going to make it through the summer. Heaven forbid there's a heat wave. But lo and behold, the thing that people have been screaming this whole time, we're not ready for any kind of transition. Like the infrastructure isn't there. Our grids already can't handle this. But we're going to keep pushing it so hard that now that people keep buying Teslas and charging them all the time, they actually already can't handle that demand.
I'm glad you brought this up. Elle, you look like you have a comment. You or no?
No, I for one am looking forward to the rolling blackouts. You know, maybe I'll go outside.
Well,
probably
because
not,
I'm
though.
on the West Coast, right? I purchased a generator. Precisely last year we lost power at least a half a dozen times, and when I say lost power, I don't mean for 15 minutes. I mean like
days on end.
Day.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, like
Oh my
like a
gosh.
significant amount of time where like all of the meat in the meat fridge would have gone bad, like a long time, right?
You have a meat fridge? That's so American of you. I love it.
A meat freezer. I have a meat freezer downstairs. Yes.
Hell yeah. Good for you.
You have to have a meat freezer. Anyway, it would have all gone bad, like significant amount of time, and yeah, man, there's so much to that story. First of all, the Teslas. I think Tesla. All right, Teslas are super cool, just like coolness factor. If you've ever driven a Tesla, they're fun and cool, and they're great tech. And they're powered by coal. They're not solar powered. They're not powered by wind. They're powered by coal. I mean, unless you live in a spot where it's really weird and you're getting your electricity from non-coal, which is not many places. Basically, they're powered by coal. So this idea that like switching to Teslas somehow people treat it like it's this free, clean energy. It's like, well, it's not free. It's cool. It's a cool car, but you take it home and you plug it into the power grid, and that's where the energy comes from. And like usually that's coal. So, yay for you.
Just doing our part to save the planet.
Yeah, but California really doesn't care. California is let's just talk about the environmentalists generally. So the big problem I have with this clean energy crap is it's not focused on human flourishing and thriving, right? Cheap energy is why humans have higher standard of living, survive longer. Like, you know what kills people? Not global warming. People freeze. Cold kills people. Yeah, some people without air conditioning who are old in warm parts die. That's true. But we did invent air conditioning, which, by the way, requires cheap energy to run. So this whole pretense that we can throw away the thing that is probably, I mean, I would say of all the inventions in human history, the one that helps humans' life the most is cheap energy. And the idea that we're going to throw it away because AOC and her cronies like the look of windmills and have a fantasy about solar power that they masturbate to is ridiculous. It's so stupid. Sorry, Elle. I
don't want to think about that. No, I didn't get upset. I just, there's some mental images that are best left, not thought up.
They get off on this idea of clean energy, which is not a thing. Like it doesn't, it's not viable. It's just not viable. And we're sunny in
No.
California.
Well, if it were going to be viable anywhere, it would have to be California. It's sunny like year round, consistent temperature. I mean, you've got the whole ocean right there, so you have all these options. But yeah, they don't. They know it's not viable, but they're convincing the population to go along with this. And I mean, I know people that they don't want to hear the truth, but they're genuinely trying to live these like green lives because they care. It's like, they're appealing to people's goodness in a way. Some of them are, just virtue signaling, but some people actually care a lot and are trying to do the right thing. It's like nothing you're doing is actually helping. They're fooling everybody. I mean, not us clearly, but it's just so annoying to me.
Well, and I think it hurts. Here's the thing about California that bothers me the most. The people in control of California politics, for the most part, it's LA and San Francisco. It's the people with the money. It's the influencers in LA and San Francisco. They donate the most money. They have the most influence in media. They sway public opinion. Like, those are the people that are having the influence. And by and large, these people are wealthy enough that it doesn't matter. They don't care. I don't think people understand the level of wealth that's normal in like middle class Bay Area. My wife and I just yesterday went to an open house just for fun. That was not far away from us. It was a 3-bedroom house. It was on more than an acre, but 75% of that was a ravine. So like not a huge plot, right? That was usable. It was like $1.9 million and the house was built in like the 60s or something. It's like an old house that had 3 bedrooms and it's almost $2 million. That's normal for the Bay Area. Like, there's a lot of money here, and these people don't care what the power costs are. They don't care what the gas prices are. They're the same people that are saying support the war in Ukraine, even if it costs your gas to go up. They don't care. They don't care about power costs. They don't care about gas costs. They don't care about any kind of cost for any of the normal live your life kind of things. Whereas regular people, because there are a lot of regular people also who just don't have the influence in California, this is killing them. The gas prices are killing them. The intermittent.
How much is a gallon of gas over there right now?
Oh, it's over $5. It's it might be close to $6. I don't remember. It depends where you are. It's ridiculous.
God,
what is yours?
Our car was $103 yesterday. I filled it up. I filled up the car yesterday.
Yeah, I'm at like $4.30.
We're at like $3.65, $3.70 a gallon right now, which is lower than it was. It was a little bit over $4 for a while. I filled up my car. It usually costs, like, when gas is at its lowest. Granted, I know that, like, I knew that the prices were going to go back up after like the like super like dip in like during COVID and all, but like it usually costs between like $40 to like $45 to fill up my tank, and it cost $65 the other day. Like, that is like $20 more to fill up a tank. Like, that's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's not like,
it's crazy.
An extra like 5 cents a gallon. That's $20 extra bucks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's significant. It's significant. And I think, someone in chat is saying, well, it's not, and I think this person actually lives in California. They're saying it's not as much money as you think. It's just inflated cost of living. It is an inflated cost of living, but the issue is there's so many people who can afford that, that like there are a lot of people who just don't care. And they're in positions of influence. And then there's an entire class of people who get destroyed when gas prices go up or when power goes out and like they lose power for a day. I mean, it really impacts people, and they just don't care because they've got an agenda, a climate agenda.
Wasn't it in like the Los Angeles area? I'm pretty sure like during COVID too, weren't they like shutting off people's power and water if people were caught violating the lockdown mandates? Like,
I think so.
This has nothing to do with like, but like they were like cutting off people's access to like power and water for breaking COVID protocol.
Right, because they care.
Yes. Safer at home together without power and water.
Yeah, I just the ironic, well, it's not ironic. The sad thing is a lot of these people are the ones who are running around patting themselves on the back for how good they're doing. Like Juliet saying, they think they're doing good. and they're literally destroying their neighbors. Like
They
people that just can't.
they give each other fake rigged awards in order to
Right.
prove their goodness, you know.
Yeah.
You shut off a grandma's power because she had more than 3 people at her house. You're a good person. That's
Right. You got to teach grandma. Well, she's probably MAGA grandma. You can't have them living. They're not good. They don't need power.
No, that's not the grandma we're trying to save here. Clearly,
Yeah.
she's
not that one.
she thinks the wrong thoughts and says the wrong things.
Mhm.
She's a danger to our democracy. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
trying to drop something.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. The guy who said he lived in, I thought lived in California. Doesn't he? Lives in New York City, but it's the same thing. New York's similar. So,
I lived in California for about a year for work, and I left like 2 days before the whole state caught on fire.
that happens every year, so you have to be more specific.
Yeah, it was like it's time for like the seasonal fire. I was there for a year contract for work, and I ended up voiding my contract a month early. I mean, like they allowed me to cut it short. I was ready to leave, and like I ended up selling my old car out there. And so my dad came to get me. Like he and my like stepmom, they were like, wow, hell yeah, we'll take a road trip. And so they came to get me, and like as we were leaving, we were like in like somewhere in like Wyoming, like staying a couple nights just to like, you know, be out in Wyoming because it's beautiful. Like it's like everything just caught on fire. I've never been happier to have been gone from somewhere in my life. So
yeah. We're good at earthquakes and fire. Those are things.
There's like a whole leaning. I lived in the Bay Area, and there's like a whole like leaning skyscraper there. I don't know if they've ever done anything about it. It's just like it's just slowly falling over into the sea.
Still there. Yeah.
Oh boy.
What are you gonna do?
It's like when a tree starts to die, and you're just like, a storm will take it down eventually. Like, what?
There's a huge. Not that this like has no whatever, but there's a huge oak tree that fell down by my house the other day because the ground got so it got so just soaked with rain super quickly, and just like the whole thing uprooted, roots and all. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
and it's super exciting. I know. I'll tell it again if you want.
Yeah, do it more slowly. What kind of tree was it? An oak tree?
It was an oak tree. And all the roots came up too, and it was really cool to see. I mean, kind of sad because you know the tree had been there for a long time, but still, like when you see like a tree, you know, break, and there's like a, you know, the cleavage point would be like with a rock, but you know what I mean, like the point, like it splinters somewhere, and like the half of it falls over. But like this was like the whole damn thing. I thought that was pretty interesting. Like the ground had become so saturated that it just tumped over.
Yeah.
So. But whenever they talk about reducing carbon and things, like you have to remember that like the human body is made up of like 20 to 30% carbon, something like that. Like carbon is like the 6th, it's like number 6 on the periodic table, like one of the most abundant, you know, elements in the universe. So when they talk about reducing carbon, they're not talking about like they want to reduce you. You are the carbon they want to reduce. So any of these like draconian measures, like it's 100% about you. You are the carbon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think when they say
themselves.
carbon, I assume they mean carbon dioxide, but I don't know. Which plants love. So it's interesting. I mean, I don't have a problem with the idea of looking at what impact is what we're doing having on the environment. Like that's a fine question to ask, but it should be in terms of how does that hurt us as humans, not hey, the environment can never change from the way it is. Like it's constantly changing. It's been changing forever. It will continue to change. The question is, how do humans thrive? Like if putting carbon dioxide, if putting carbon into the atmosphere in order to have air conditioning for people and refrigeration, if that's necessary, so be it. Air conditioning and refrigeration are good, and heat, right? Those are things that are good for humans. Those help humans.
You'll take my air conditioner and my refrigerator over my dead body. Which might come down to that, but like over my dead body, will I give up my air conditioning in the summer in Alabama? Go to hell.
Right. But you never see. I also don't think a lot of them believe it. Obama bought like a $8 million house in Martha's Vineyard, which like if he believes this, his own crap would be underwater soon, right? So like they don't even believe their own stuff. They just make predictions and then like,
Well, insurance companies are one to look for when it comes to issues with
Yes.
climate, and also with COVID. One of the things that's kind of starting to happen now in the COVID narrative, not to pivot entirely, but insurance companies are starting to catch up to the fact that there are abnormal reactions to the vaccines because they're having to report them. They're having to code them as such. There was in Germany a executive at one of the insurance companies he got sacked because he was reporting on these the actual when you leave the doctor with your little carbon paper but it has a medical code and they're coding things as adverse reactions to vaccines, and these are just the people that actually had to seek medical attention for it, and that's starting to happen here as well. And while they're doing a little bit better of a job, the cartels, the insurance cartels here are doing a little bit better of a job of keeping it all hush hush. It's not going to last forever. And same thing with climate change. Again, no insurance company in their right mind would insure a property on coastlines if they knew it was going to be underwater, or if they truly believed it was going to be underwater in 5 years. They just simply wouldn't, especially not mega mansions on like Martha's Vineyard. But here we are.
No, that's a great I love that cheat, right? What do the actuaries say? It's a cheat. What do the actuaries say? Like, oh, okay, because they're the ones who actually make or lose money based on how much risk they ascribe to this. And if they're insuring your house in Martha's Vineyard, then probably they expect it to be there for quite some time, regardless of what any climate reports say.
I think degradation of our physical environment is something that should 100% be paid attention to, though. I mean, when you ruin entire biomes in the ocean for dumping trash, that's a big issue. That can throw off the whole food chain. Those are keeping the Earth to this 2 degrees Celsius threshold would not have the impact of making a food system that is not thrown off by ruining it in the big plastic hunk in the ocean.
Right.
It's like the size of Madagascar or something bigger than that. Even it was huge.
Yeah. Right. So there are things to worry about that do affect humans that we hurt ourselves, but this isn't one to lose sleep over, like the fact that there's some slight warming. It's okay, that's nice.
That happens.
Yeah.
My dad told me, my dad was born in the mid 60s, and he told me that in the 70s, towards the late 70s, which I have a copy of this somewhere, they were planning to sprinkle coal dust on the North and South Pole to attract the heat from the sun to melt them because they were concerned about the impending ice age.
Yes. Yes. I've been paying attention to this for basically my whole life since I was in high school. And
do you follow Tony Heller? He does a great job.
No.
He is one of my favorite. Tony Heller, Tony. He's on Gab, and I think still on. He might have been. Yeah, he might have been banned from Twitter by this point, but it's TonyHeller. He does such a good job in covering the different changes in climate discussion. 10 out of 10 would recommend Tony Heller's work.
Okay. No, I follow Michael Schellenberger does some stuff as well. Who's he comes, I think he's actually in Berkeley, but he's he's one of these guys who's he's not coming from the perspective of a quote denier or whatever. He's hey, you guys, I think his book is Apocalypse Never. His book is stop freaking people out. When you make these crazy claims and you say that the sky is falling and you're trying to say it's a catastrophe, you lose credibility. It's not a catastrophe. There are changes. It's not a catastrophe. We can deal with them. Stop being hyperbolic, because when you're hyperbolic, people just ignore you. All right, because they know you're wrong. So, someone else says Lord Monckton is good. Yeah, I've heard about him. I haven't read him.
I tried to post the link to his. I guess I can't post links in your YouTube chat, but I put.
Where's your? I'll just make you a mod. Where's your YouTube?
I'm SomeBitchIKnow, because I've been banned on YouTube twice.
Okay, hold on. How come I don't see you? Some B.
Hi. I am.
All right. Well, if I see, there you are. SomeBitchIKnow. Okay.
Oh, I keep meaning to look this up, because when I was in elementary school, the biggest climate thing they talked about was the ozone. and how we were all gonna have like instant cancer, and it was just getting bigger and bigger. And I have a poster from a National Geographic that it shows the progression. But like, whatever happened to that? I haven't heard anybody talk about the ozone in like decades.
I think we can assume that their predictions did not come true.
Therefore,
we just don't. It goes down the memory hole. Back to the 1984 reference. Hey, Winston. Remember we were writing about the ozone hole? Just rip that up and throw it down the memory hole. Rewrite that.
It was that white rain aerosol hairspray that all the Southern ladies used in the 90s.
They stopped using it.
But the planet. There is from what I understand, and I have a very tenuous understanding of this in general, but from what I understand, there is a hole in the ozone, but it's something that like goes through cycles and it kind of does it naturally.
Yes.
Has very little to do with
CFCs,
us.
And that was I'm sure that's the explanation.
I think that was the aerosols. Like there was a big aerosol like sweeping.
Yeah, the white net hairspray you're talking. Yeah.
I thought it was white rain, but Aquanet. That was it.
Aquanet.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not a hairspray aficionado.
How dare you?
Aquanet. I know. I
use mousse sometimes.
All right. Well,
but,
yeah.
Crushing it.
L.
Yeah.
What story should we be paying attention to that doesn't involve hairspray?
Well, so mine's kind of just again, more of like a sweeping statement than any particular story. But there was a write-up on the homeschooling. It's the HSLDA's website, which is like a homeschooling advocacy group that is focusing on people who homeschool their kids. I'm a mother of a cat, but for some reason I cannot stop focusing on things that are affecting kids because I care. Just because I don't have a kid doesn't mean I don't care. They're in specific districts in Perry County, Kentucky, in particular, which is what this write-up is about. Which actually, I've got it. Do I have it pulled up? I've got it pulled up here if you'd like. But they're making house visits. You don't have to share it if you don't want to, but they're making house visits to people's homes in this Perry County, Kentucky, to people who homeschool. To try to convince them to come back to public schooling. And it's just something to keep an eye on. There's actually at Harvard, every single week, there is a homeschooling webinar that goes on where this absolutely just witch-like woman, I've sat in on these for like every Thursday for like going on a year, and I record a lot of them, and I haven't put anything together on it yet, but I'm just kind of sitting there lurking because they sit there and they talk about homeschoolers and how parents don't have the right to homeschool their kids, parents don't have the right to remove kids from government education, etc. But in Perry County, Kentucky, in particular, families are being sought out personally, receiving home visits by school officials, being like tailed by them to return to schools. And as we saw, like there was a mass exodus over the last 2 years to people who were able to make, pivot into, working from home or, move down to a single income family and just kind of cut some extraneous expenses. People who went to homeschooling, and there's a mass exodus, and they're really that's one of the most powerful things that people can do to kind of remove kids from that, the matrix, so to speak. And in this little town in Kentucky, people are being again tailed by school officials to try to bring them back to school. And this is the HSLDA, and there's the Christian Home Educators of Kentucky. I follow a lot of these people, but that's going on. And another thing kind of on top of this, and something I'm planning on talking about on my stream on Tuesday, is that so many different things happened to kids over the last 2 years in particular. And we've talked about quite a few of them, but I've been looking into the actual measures that a lot of... Like I'm seeing like something in like this. Oh, that's Juliet's. Never mind. I was like, what is this in my beside me? Sorry, I'm like having like a spaz moment right now. There's a lot happening today. But like when kids went to learning from home, I mentioned earlier that New York Times article that's just now being like, well, maybe learning from home wasn't as good for kids. They showed like a 50% reduction in math aptitude. Even kids that did a hybrid or went back to class, like 20% reduction in math aptitude. But kids who did learn from home, who's Randy Weingarten champion for this, they were subject to some really, really awful surveillance techniques, like eye tracking software, where if you looked away from your computer, or even if you like just horrific things, and then also proctors, like proctors who watched kids take exams would make kids like take their laptop that are like these Chromebooks that were issued by Google to schools for this fucking reason. They'd have to take their Chromebook, stand up and like pivot and show their entire bedroom to some proctor who they don't know. They don't know how safe they are with this person. Had to show their whole bedroom, everything in their bedroom, and have their entire like their one safe space. Like I keep saying safe space, but like for kids especially, their bedroom,
Yeah, no,
their
absolutely.
safe
It's a
space.
private spot for them.
It's where they exist. It's where they can be themselves. It's where they can, do whatever. And having to routinely expose that to someone that they don't know for, test safety or like, to make sure they didn't cheat on a test, I mean, is horrific. And we see time after time, year after year, catastrophe after catastrophe, or, psyop after psyop, rather. Anytime some sort of thing happens, there's a knee-jerk reaction, a big response, and then these sort of measures are taken, and you're told they're temporary and that they're necessary, but they never really go away. And this sort of massive invasion of children's privacy is, and now of families' privacy at home, being visited by school officials trying to drag them back to the public school system that's failed them repeatedly over and over again. It's really quite scary, and that's what I'm focusing on right now. Granted, it might not be the most pertinent thing, but it's something that I think that people need to be focusing on. It's something I've been digging into because I didn't really know, but there's this whole little pocket of kids on TikTok, and I refer to anyone under 18 as a kid, basically, because they are kids, really, when you think about it. Like, there's a whole pocket of kids on TikTok, which I've taken to monitoring a little bit more than I used to, that have just been talking, in their own little, young adult circles, teenager circles, where they talk about the things that they've been through. And it's so heartbreaking, the things that they've been subjected to, that parents either didn't know about, didn't pay attention to, or just, chalked it up to, well, we all got to do our part and being all in this together. And it takes one generation. You see now, when people were trying to legitimize the vaccine mandates, all they said was, well, I was required to do this in school.
Mhm.
Well, when this sort of software, when these sort of invasions of privacy if they try to push to normalize something like this again, kids who had to go through this in school will be like, well, we did it in school. Like, it really takes one generation. And this is like a really big one, in my opinion. So that's what I'm focusing on. And the metaverse.
Well, I mean, without getting to the metaverse yet,
That's a big one.
but I think you're spot on. So I'm on the HSLDA's email list, so I get, because this is super important. So I pay attention to this stuff a little bit as well. And I mean, what happened was you can really see. I think these attitudes about who, I'll say, owns the kids, because that's how they look at it. This attitude of who's in charge of,
I'm still here,
this attitude of who's in charge of the kids hasn't changed. It's just been exposed, and the pandemic kind of exposed it. You could see when they switched to cameras and laptops for remote learning, you could see a lot of schools told parents you couldn't watch. You weren't allowed to watch what your kid was being taught. Now, parents mostly just said, screw you, I'm going to watch anyway. Right. But like, that was the attitude of the school. And, something that's striking me that you were saying earlier, Elle, is, was it Harvard?
Harvard, yes.
This attitude that like parents don't have a right to take their kids out of the school system. That's how they feel. Again, not to circle back to communism, but that is a Marxist belief, right? That is the kids need to be indoctrinated. The kids need to be raised by the state because the state knows better. And that's a real attitude. They really believe that. And they believe that parents who aren't on board with that are, we'll say, endangered species that they plan to eliminate over the next few generations. Like the idea that your child is yours is on the chopping block. It's what and they'll say, no, it's not, because you're still allowed to have the kid at home and feed them. But they mean is like, the mind of the child is theirs. It's not yours, because you're a wrong thinker and you don't know how to do this properly. And we know your kid needs to learn. We need the genderbread man in kindergarten, and we need to teach activism. A lot of these, if you look around, just do a survey of schools, and you'll see a lot of schools, private schools tend to advertise this more because they have to advertise, but look at what they're trying to teach kids. And one of them is like activism. Like a lot of this, they want to raise a generation of activists, and you can't do that if you can't control the ideology. They'll be the wrong activists.
I have something pulled up if you don't mind popping that back up on the
pull
screen.
it up.
If you want a rabbit hole to go down, anyone who has kids in particular, this is for the state of California. If you want a rabbit hole to go down with the education system that is horrific on a whole different level, this is for California, but look up anything involving Cradle-to-Career. This is a California.gov website, c2c.ca.gov. It's the Cradle-to-Career system, a statewide data system that will provide tools to help students reach their goals and deliver information on education and workforce outcomes. But the whole point of this, which, obviously the goal for many, anyone who's not born with a silver spoon in their mouth, the goal for many is to, learn enough at school, gain enough skills at college or in a trade school, or just earn it the natural way to become gainfully employed to make a living. But their goal here with this Cradle-to-Career system aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals. There's an involvement with the UN, with the SDGs, with Agenda 2030, and it's to tailor down the thought process that kids are allowed to undertake. They don't really teach critical thinking anymore. They don't teach problem solving anymore. It's about being able to fulfill a role and do some sort of preset or fulfill some sort of requirement to receive their social credits, basically. And this Cradle-to-Career rabbit hole is huge on that. And we're gonna be Tuesday night show on my stream is gonna be real fun. We're gonna talk about a lot of this. But the Cradle-to-Career is a big jumping off point. This is Biden is. This is one of their big moves. It's got a lot of Bill Gates money in it, Soros money, etc. Like Biden is one of the big, through Dr. Jill Biden, who, she's one of the people spearheading it as well. This is what they want to put in place. And the whole idea of this, again, is to pay for. I use that word kind of lightly, but pre-K, they want your kid literally in school, in government mandated schooling as early as possible. So pre-K now, that's government approved, and then the first 2 years of college, and that's just the start. And for anyone who struggled with money or who is in a massive amount of student debt, that sort of sounds great. But again, when you have government tailored education systems that just prolong the indoctrination, prolong the state mandated, talking points and learning points, and don't actually teach any sort of actionable life skills like, financial literacy or, how to be a, self-sufficient
why not to take a student
being.
loan for your English degree?
For your English degree. Yeah, no, that was the best financial decision I've ever made. 10 out of 10 would go into massive debt for a $30,000 paperweight again. But this is all part of that. And again, here's Gavin Newsom said, he says, it's on us to make it easy for students to navigate education and job choices. The Cradle-to-Career system provides the data and support infrastructure that will make it possible for every student in the state to thrive. But do you want your kid really thriving in California's state-run system? Is that what people in California want?
Well,
I mean,
here's the
maybe
thing.
Some of them, I don't know.
The people that I was talking about that are telling you the gas prices don't matter and that are driving around their Teslas and that are pushing a lot of this stuff, their kids don't do this. I just want to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
Their kids don't do this. Their kids go to private schools and they get networked into Stanford.
Right.
And they probably have a nanny.
Even
their kids.
Even AOC, who is the champion of all things education or whatever, she got caught bragging about getting her little cousin into some sort of charter school in New York City, and then had to apologize for it. Well, she didn't actually apologize for it, but none of them.
She said, "Stop wanting to sleep with me." That was her apology.
Oh yes, Alexandria. We're all just dying to see you naked. But anyways, Cradle-to-Career, it's a huge rabbit hole. We're gonna talk about it tomorrow night on the stream, though. So.
Well, let's just point out two things. If you're reading dystopian novels, first of all, this reeks of not 1984, but Brave New World. But notice that they did not say. This doesn't say kindergarten to. It doesn't say kindergarten to 12. It's cradle. Cradle. That's like
babies.
As soon as you're born, we got it. Cradle. Mm-hmm. And Cradle-to-Career, that's all the way through working. That's okay. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And I think what they do, I think they play on the naivete of people who are older and went to school at a time when school was much more about reading, writing, arithmetic, the normal kind of stuff. And they think, well, they're just trying to give kids a good education. But that's not what the definition of education is anymore. Look at how Americans have performed in math over the past several decades compared to other countries. We haven't gotten better. We're not good. We're not doing a better job. What we're doing is training people on, I'm just reading this. Like, yeah, community members to inform advocacy and policy analysis. This is about getting kids to be good citizens. And when they say good citizens, they mean good comrades.
Global citizens.
Yes. Yeah, that's what they mean.
That's what they mean. Yeah.
All right, well.
It's scary, honestly.
Oh, yeah, Jill Biden gave a keynote speech at the 2018 Cradle-to-Career Network convention. Like this whole thing, even before they occupied the White House, this has been something that it began largely with the implementation of Common Core. That was again financed and funded almost exclusively by Bill Gates. You can go to SomeBitchToldMe.com, type in a Common Core, and you'll see exactly. I did a very big dig into this, but Cradle-to-Career, it started with Common Core that was funded by Bill Gates. Then Obama in 2012 put together a big initiative on this, and this is something that, again, Biden, they're waiting. This is going to be their answer, in my opinion. And I speculate quite a bit in my own mind, but I don't try to speculate too much outwardly, because again, everything is changing all the time. But in my opinion, some sort of version of this Cradle-to-Career thing, where they're going to cover not only pre-K but also the first 2 years of college, at least that's what they're aiming for, will be provided as the solution for the student loan crisis, because they don't want to actually forgive the loans, because that creates wage slaves that are beholden to the government forever. Like these are federally subsidized student loans that are owed back to the government. They need that money. Like there's no fixing that they want to do, but they're going to offer this as some sort of solution. And then they're going to say, which is the common narrative, is that if you don't believe in student loan forgiveness or free college for people, then you don't believe in fairness and equality and all of that. But that's going to be offered, in my opinion, right before the midterms. That's going to be offered as their big solution, is the Cradle-to-Career kind of thing. So that's what I'm keeping my eyes on.
Interesting, because people have speculated on what the solution will be, because there's been a lot of clamor from the leftists who wanted student loan forgiveness.
That's never going to happen.
But yeah, well, I hope not. Because I don't know that they care about the money so much. They should, but they don't seem to care about money generally. I think it would create a lot of backlash from people who have been paying their student loans and paid off their student loans. I think they would lose. There's a lot of resentment, I can imagine. If I were an English major with $30,000 of student loan debt, and I, been working my ass off the last several years to pay it off, and then suddenly it got forgiven, I would be pissed.
Well, I simply did not pay my loans back for like 4 years, like 3 or 4 years when I first left school. And racked up like an additional, I think like $8,000 in like fees and extra stuff. And I called them. I was like, hey, so I've never made a payment, and they ended up actually granted, I don't want to be grateful to this system that because realistically at that point I could have just declared like bankruptcy, defaulted on the loan, and just been done with it, and I would have been able to claw back a lot quicker than I have now. But they ended up waiving all the fees and like put me on like a they base your payment based on your income, but the lower the payment is, the longer you're going to be on the hook for it, and you pay for it time and time again in that interest. Like if I make my minimum required payment every month, it covers like the interest and then like $15. You know what I mean?
Right. You're working for your whole life.
It's a travesty. Yeah. And it all goes, it's an investment, so to speak, from the government to, ensure that income for themselves, those federally subsidized loans for the duration or most of the duration of a lot of people's lives. That's why they're not going to forgive it.
Yeah. And that's, you are turning people into wage slaves for the government. I mean, income taxes are bad enough, but at least if you don't work, you don't pay income taxes. But if you have a debt to the government, you can't even not work. You can't just be like, I'm not just not, I'm gonna, I don't know how you do it.
They'll seek
but whatever,
out
I'm just gonna not work.
they'll garnish your wages. They'll like remove like people who need it the most. I mean, granted, I'm not saying like on the one hand, I don't really want to advocate for like, people flouting the system or whatever, but like there are social safety nets in place for people who genuinely need them to get back on their feet temporarily. And like if you need to draw on like unemployment, for example, because you've paid into that for your whole damn life, and like if you need to draw on unemployment, like they'll garnish that for the money that you owe the government before they allow you to draw the very. I had to go on unemployment for about 2 months one time, and it was so meager. Like it's not enough for anything, even despite having paid like thousands upon thousands into it for the duration of my life. But they'll garnish that before, they let you get even just a bit. Like social safety nets that actually work and that people use them the way they're supposed to work are supposed to be there for that reason. But they'll skim off the top of that and then tax those too. It's an absolute travesty. I'm very angry today. Sorry. I'm
I understand. I think what. I understand your anger. I think one of the ways to think about this, actually, you could think about the student loan thing this way. You could also think about the Cradle-to-Career thing this way. The left is about centralization of power, and I think one of the things that we're seeing. I mean, I often argue that like the real scale is like authoritarian versus like libertarian or whatever, right? Like that's the real scale of politics we should be paying attention to. But another way to think about that scale is like centralization versus decentralization. Oh, nice. You're being attacked.
No, she's just hanging out. Sorry. Anyways, carry on.
No, but if you think about why they would be upset at parents, for example, homeschooling is the ultimate decentralization, right? And decentralization is antithetical to the left's agenda, because what they want is they want to be in control. Leftists generally, at least modern leftists, are control freaks at the heart. They're like Karens on steroids. They're the busybodies that have gone hyperbolic, right? They're busybodies on steroids. So they want to control everything. They want to control how you think about the world. And to do that, they can't have... This is one of the issues, actually, I think, just to mention the Roe v. Wade thing, this is one of the issues with the Roe v. Wade upset. If it gets overturned, it's not that it becomes illegal in the U.S. It's that states get to do what they want. And
I was told they're going to outlaw birth control and interracial marriage, and that you won't be able to talk to your gay neighbor anymore. I was told that all of that was going to happen. I don't know what you're talking about. That's misinformation. You should be banned.
Right? Yeah. They can ban me for that.
You're a dangerous man.
That's what it is. They want centralization. They want that control, that authority, because if your goal is to control people, which the left is about authoritarianism, then you want all the power centrally located in one spot, and that's how you control everyone. As soon as power gets distributed, it's an uphill battle. You can't control. You're like, you get one state and you lose another one, and like you can't actually. And if that power is distributed all the way down to families, like if everyone were homeschooled, there's no way to control them. You can't possibly control everyone if everyone is homeschooled. You can't get the social change that you want. You want to be able to manipulate the population, and you can't do it if everyone is homeschooled. But that's why they hate homeschooling. That's why I think they like things like Common Core, right? Because it was a centralized system. And now they're gonna if you're right, they're gonna upgrade Common Core to Cradle-to-Career kind of thing, right?
Well,
and it's all centralized.
Equitable programs, equitable math, the one it's like the Virginia Pathways to Mathematics, which is funded again by Bill Gates. Spoiler alert, it's almost always Bill Gates, or at least he's like the financial and political backing for this, but he was the one who who pays for it all. But these sort of things are incremental steps, because again, anytime you sort of seed any sort of ground, or whether or not you know that it's happening. I mean, I was just a child really and pretty unaware of everything going on. But like when Common Core was implemented, it was one of those things that people like, it's like No Child Left Behind and all of that stuff. It sounded good, right? It sounded super snappy. And then
it's always named nice and it always sounds nice. Yeah.
But actually, here, if you can pull up the screen, just 1 second. Again, if you go to my website, which is SomeBitchToldMe.com, I wrote about the globalist takeover of the American educational system. Part 1. It's very, very long, but actually like made this like very large map of like all the different ways that these are connected to like UN initiatives and like the like green economy and all of that, sustainable development goals. It's a big fat mess. And I realize that this makes me, it's not a good argument for the fact that like I'm like well adjusted or not insane, but like this is if you want a good place to start on like the like pathway to equitable math instruction, again, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is the only financial backer listed of this. It just continuously is listed. This was listed directly from the Virginia Department of Education's like Facebook page. They listed directly to equitable math like this. These are the huge things to pay attention to, and it's it continues. It's just like this onslaught constantly of different things that are going on that like again once it happens it's very hard to undo them. And then we see people like Randy Weingarten and the American Federation of Teachers that will dig in their heels and claim that they're being persecuted by the mean people who give a shit about what their kids are learning in school.
Yep.
And it's an attack on our democracy to do that. So I'll drop a link to this in the chat on YouTube.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted to be a teacher when I was little. Like I totally thought that's what I was going to do. I even did an internship my senior year where I got to leave school early to go be like a pretend teacher at the local elementary school. Within a few years of that, all of the teachers at that elementary school that had been there for, decades, all of them retired, most of them early because of Common Core, because they weren't allowed to be creative in their teaching methods anymore. Like you couldn't try to teach about Egypt by doing crafts and, that kind of stuff. It's like, it's so regimented and all that matters is like the test score at the end of the month and that kind of thing, that they drove away all the good teachers. And that's why now we have our entire education system is just packed with activists. They aren't there to teach your kids history. They're there to teach them activism, basically ideology.
Well, they linked federal funding to schools to the performance on standardized testing. Mm-hmm. So when kids wouldn't pass the standardized testing, teachers would come up with some sort of extra credit. I mean, like extra credit started rolling out or different ways that you could make it up because they needed those test scores to be above a certain level so they could receive their federal funding. So there was a lot of pressure from administrators and from like school, like entire like school systems to make sure that those test scores, those standardized testing scores were up to a certain level. So then you had kids that were continuously being passed on to the next grade who didn't have any sort of competency in the main things that they're supposed to learn, but they keep getting passed on over and over again until you have kids graduating from high school that can read at like a 4th grade level and they just don't care because they get their funding and they're someone else's problem then.
Yep. Yeah.
I almost went to school for teaching. I ended up changing my major to English, which again, not my best decision ever, but
I don't know if teaching would have been better.
Yeah.
I would have already rage quit. So here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not that they don't teach the history, right? It's that they teach history and math and science with as a means to an end. Like we're teaching you this history because we want you to be a better activist. We're teaching you this science because we want you to be a better activist. I mean, there's a school near us. I don't actually want to expose how I know this. There's a school near us that the kids in their science class, I think this was like 6th grade or 7th grade, like one of those like middle school grades. Part of their science class assignment was writing to senators about climate change action. Now, think about this. If you actually cared about climate, this is why you know they don't actually care about these issues. If you actually cared about raising a generation of kids that could, and you thought climate change was a big deal, and you thought that you wanted to raise a generation of kids who could actually address this problem, you would focus on teaching them science and and know that later in life, with a solid foundation in science, they would reach the same conclusions that you've reached with respect to the environment. And they would write the letters to the senators that you want them to write when they were in their 20s or 30s, because they would have the good scientific foundation to understand. But that's not what they care about. They want these kids who don't understand the first thing about any of this to write activism letters to their senator about climate change. That's not science, that's activism. And that is, by the way, that is common. That kind of crap that passes for science. It's less, it's still in math a little bit, but I see it a lot in science where it's like, let's watch the Lorax. Let's write letters to senators. Let's listen to a Greta Thunberg. Like literally, this is what they're doing in science in a lot of these places. And that's obviously that has nothing to do with science, right? It's because they're afraid of teaching science. Yeah. Really.
Oh, right. The same reason they don't want us to, like, they're not teaching math the way they used to. I mean, isn't it? What state is it they're getting rid of the math requirements for
Virginia.
graduation? It's crazy. Well, it's like one of the Washington or Oregon was proposing that they just like kind of do away with basic math requirements for graduation.
Well, math is racist.
Apparently.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you can do math, you can get to the bottom of a lot of stuff. I mean, basic statistics will show a lot, but you know, if nobody can really do math other than typing something into their phone's calculator, they can fool the entire population on everything all the time.
Yeah. They don't want you actually knowing math or science.
Well, in order to know math and science, you have to know the scientific method, which is, again, forming hypotheses, testing it, and then reevaluating your position if you learn new information. And that is dangerous to our democracy because you can't reevaluate your position. You have to dig your heels in once it's given to you, and that's that.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah. No, you're right. Because science is reality based, math is reality based, in that, like, there's a right answer. And you can, with science in particular, you can argue and question, which is the nature of science. And that's not true with leftism. One cannot argue and question. So
I would have a lot more respect for literally anyone who has been part of like the more draconian efforts over the last 2 years. I would have a lot more respect for anyone who just said, hey, I got it wrong. I've reevaluated my position, and this is why I've changed my mind. But no one's been capable of just saying, or very few people have been able to say, I got it wrong, and I'm sorry for the decisions I made out of fear. Like I would have, right. I would still be really furious about everything that they've done, but I would at least consider the idea that maybe they actually do care about their actions and the impact that they have on people, but they don't.
Right.
Yeah,
I get things wrong all the time, and I'm just like, hey, everybody, sorry, I got this wrong, or I learned something new, and like it's literally never been a big deal. Granted, I know that like me and my little social media corner, and I'm like, it's low stakes in comparison, but still, like no one has ever been like, oh, how dare you learn something new and change your mind? No one's ever been like that.
Yeah, because because your audience, I don't think they're not following an ideology. They just want to know the truth, and you're going to get stuff wrong once in a while, and that's fine.
Well, it's it's participatory too. That's why, like, I open like pretty much every stream up with the exact, like, I try to like keep it concise and consistent, but I always end up ad-libbing. But essentially, I'm just like, if you know something that I don't, or something that like needs to be added to this discussion, let me know, because like, despite people's both flattering and unlivable like expectations that I can't live up to, that like I know everything all the time. I simply don't. But that's, there's people just want to be able to contribute to things. I owe a lot of my knowledge to people like Sophocles. I see you in the chat right now. Like to people who add their knowledge to it. And that's, we have to be able to put our own ego aside. None of this is about any one of us. It's about moving towards
finding the truth.
Goal. Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Let me just read a couple super chats. I'm going to get in trouble if I don't read them. Silverlock says another good panel. Thank you, Silverlock. And Cheeky Mare says, I paid off $60,000 in 32 months working 3 jobs pay for your own school. See, that's the attitude that I think they're worried about if they do student loan forgiveness. Everyone like Cheeky Mayor is going to be like, screw you, I'm never voting for you guys again.
Yeah, I think you're so right on that. I really do. I mean, I was lucky enough that between my grandparents' help, like my grandparents were pre-World War II generation, and they literally just put away tons of money for their grandkids. So I had that help, and then I worked too to like put myself through college. So I got out of there with no loans. But yeah, if they just did like a sweeping forgiveness, I'd be pissed. I'd be like, man, like I worked really hard to not need a loan to get,
Right.
you know, to go to college. Like there is something patently unfair there, but they don't really care about fairness.
There is something though that I would like to interject in, and this is where it becomes a less common opinion, but that's okay. I'm used to being the underdog here. I do think that being particularly like just being blanket blanket callous kind of statements, and I'm not saying that super chat was callous at all, but a lot of people are like, you went into debt, you earned it, you're stuck with it. I understand nobody wants to be responsible for anyone else's student loan debts. I certainly don't expect anyone else to pay off my own student loans. I was an idiot and went into that debt. That's my own big deal. But this was a prime opportunity for conservatives who are in a political position, who are in a position of power, in a position of influence, to say that there's a lot more going on than just people taking out student loans. And there's a systemic issue that arises from people going to college and getting bullshit degrees that have absolutely no valuation in the job market. This could be a way to hold universities accountable for churning out useless degrees, for way overcharging. They could, threaten to remove their endowments or their funding from federal dollars. This could be a championing, like a championship moment for the Republican Party, but they refuse to address it, and they're more like the whole pull yourself up by your own bootstraps kind of mentality. I understand no one wants to pay for people's student loans, but this is a huge problem for a lot of people. I am very fortunate that I'm able to make at least like the minimum payment every month, but there are plenty of people that don't. And as we keep seeing, they keep talking about the pinch at the gas pump and the pinch with food costs and things like that. That pinch is the difference between people being able to make their student loan payments or not, where they're going to keep accruing interest for life. They're going to keep struggling with things. Maybe they're going job to job, etc. There has to be some level of compassion for that, and there needs to be a clear way out of this mess that has been created by the measures that were put in place by the Obama administration that Biden championed, where people couldn't default on their student loans, couldn't go on anything that was federally subsidized, couldn't default on it or go bankrupt on it, couldn't get rid of it ever, get rid of that debt. Granted, it would destroy your credit, but what else doesn't these days? But there has to be some level of compassion, and this could be a huge moment for them to take the reins and say, you know what, this is a huge problem. This is how we're going to deal with it, and this is how we're going to hold the universities accountable for the things that they've done and the debt that they've sent people into, and offer a solution. Because just saying pull yourself up by your bootstraps, idiot, is not going to win over people. And there are way more people that this affects. Like it is a huge problem, but it's a problem that has solutions that don't involve just waiving debt, which is never going to happen anyways. It's never going to happen anyways, because the government wants that money. They want people to be on the hook for that money for the duration of their lifetimes. That's literally the goal. They're never going to waive it. So it's granted, I could be eating my words here in a few weeks if we get up to midterms. I get that. But I never see a path forward where they're going to waive student loan debt ever. So just let go of that idea and let go of that happening, and then think about ways that you could actually work on actionable solutions and holding these universities accountable. That's that could be a crucial, key, pivotal issue for Republicans, and they refuse to even touch it. And I mean, I know why, but it's frustrating.
I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, although I would probably go even a step further, which is I like that you want the Republicans to use the word systemic, because it is a systemic problem.
It's a huge problem.
And that's a leftist word usually. Usually they're the ones who argue about systemic problems. It's a systemic problem, but I think I think we should, maybe this is a great opportunity to question, what's the value of college in the first place? What's the purpose of college? Why is the government subsidizing college at all? How is the government subsidizing universities in ways that we're not talking about, not just through tuition, but grants to study ridiculous crap that doesn't need to be studied? Like, government has, when my dad went to school, now granted, I'm old, so my dad is older. But when my dad went to school, he was poor, relatively poor, farmers. He sold.
I'll be right back. Sorry.
Sure. During the summer, they had a stand in their like the big front of their farm by the main road, and he sold, basically fruit. He sold fruit at the stand. That's what he did. And I think he had a part-time job at like Union Carbide or something. But he could make enough money during the summer to pay his entire tuition, room, and board for the rest of the year while he was going to college. That was not uncommon. He wasn't special. That was normal. And we got addicted to college as this thing that everyone has to do because people in the past made more money going to college. Like, smarter people tended to go to college, and they tended to then go get higher paying jobs. And people reversed cause and effect. And everyone said, oh, it's because you went to college that you get wealthy. Like, that's not true. It could be a step along the way. If you need to learn, you want to be a doctor, you got to go to college. Right. But we pushed this, and then we said, well, the government needs to help because not everyone can do it because it's kind of expensive. And the more the government helped, the more detached universities became from the free market. So the less the university had to justify why it costs so much to get a degree, because they were subsidized themselves. Plus, you could go get loans, blah, blah, blah. The government got involved in it. So now it's because of the government that you can borrow tens of thousands of dollars to get a degree in women's studies, or now gender studies. It's because of the government. That shouldn't exist. And we were talking about actuaries before and insurance companies. If your degree was worth the money, a private institution would gladly lend you your tuition. And if private institutions are not willing to lend you your tuition, you should double check. You should really think twice about whether or not that degree is actually worth it. It probably isn't. And I think the reason the left is pushing college has nothing to do with jobs. I think it's because it's their indoctrination factory, and they know it's their indoctrination factory. And when you go to trade school and you learn to be an electrician, which you can make good money at and have a great career and an excellent life just being an electrician and going to trade school without getting your degree in gender studies, you don't get indoctrinated.
Right.
They don't get to teach you fucking Derrida.
And like in trade schools too, most of the time you're working while you're going to school, because you've got like an apprenticeship, or at least like a company will hire you while you're getting, your journeymans or whatever. So like a lot of the guys that I know that went to trade school, they were immediately better off than their peers that went to college, and still are, because they don't have debt. And they started their careers at 20 instead of 25, and they get yearly raises, and you can get continuing like education, higher licenses and stuff in the trades. And I just don't understand. Well, I mean, I do understand why they don't do this, but like, why don't they offer this to kids that aren't great at school? You don't have to be great at school to be a plumber. Honestly, you really don't. But they push them so hard to get into college. Well, if you didn't get into a good one, at least go to community college.
There's an entire college industrial complex that's focused on lying to you about the value of a degree. And they cite studies that say things like, well, people with college degrees on average make more than people without college degrees. That may be true. But the question is, if you're a person who's on the edge, like, that's comparing doctors to people who are going to work at Walmart their entire lives in the checkout. Like, that's the comparison that they're doing. Okay, but if you're on the edge about like, should I go to college? Is college right for me or not? That's the demographic that matters. Like, okay, for that person, is going to college, is borrowing tens of thousands of dollars to go get a degree in English worth it? Or would you be better off starting your career 4 years early and doing this other thing that you really like, which maybe is being a plumber or being an electrician or whatever? And they don't make that comparison, because that comparison, the results don't favor going to college. They don't favor taking out student loans and going to college. So they just show the overall comparison and say, see, people with college educations make more. You should go. It's like, yeah, fine. People who go to Harvard make more too, but that doesn't mean you have to go to Harvard.
Right.
It invalidates their whole system
Mm-hmm.
by doing
Yes.
that.
Yeah. Which is why I called it the college industrial complex. There's an entire industry dedicated to convincing you that you're a bad parent if you don't pay for your child or help your child take out loans and then subsidize whatever, get your child to university to get a gender studies degree or whatever. And there's no,
or the military. And I say that with all
Yes.
the love and respect for people who are in the military, but it's the same thing. They prey on people who are low income or who couldn't afford college. And again, there's a lot of benefits that can be had by pursuing a career in the military, by all means, but it plugs you into another one of those like government industrial complexes that arguably does a lot of things we don't agree with. And I'm not saying, again, I respect a lot of people that have been in the military. I'm not saying that you're a hero just for joining it, but I don't want to disparage military members, but at the same time, it's one of those things that needs to be really examined. The cause and effect of allowing that to continue on the way that it has for so long.
Yeah, I'm thinking about if you're poor and you can't, like, this is the other thing. If you step back and look at what we're saying to people, oh, you're poor? Well, if you're willing to go get shot at for a few years, we'll pay for your college. It's like, well, that's an interesting thing. Who's getting shot at then? It's not the sons of the senators who go to Harvard. It's the sons of people who can't afford.
Yeah, you want to go die in Ukraine for,
right,
a pissing contest between Biden and Putin?
Right.
Right. If you're willing to possibly die over this crap, then we'll pay for your college. Part of it.
Right.
And then you still have to go to college at the end of that.
Yeah. Then you
granted, you can pursue like careers within the military. I didn't join the military because I was like, I joined because I was dumb. You're not dumb. Again, I have a lot of my family is military. I have a lot of respect for people in the military. It's not that at all, but it's just another one of those things to kind of examine the level of like indoctrination that and the level of, I don't want to say desperation, but when you're told over and over again, you need to go to college or else you won't be anything. And when you believe that wholeheartedly, you pursue a education and a higher education at any cost, and that can be in the military, where you can, maybe not necessarily die overseas, but become permanently like disabled or like I've heard of plenty of people that have gone deaf going into the military just because of like the level of like constant like barrage on their like hearing. There's a lot of things that are associated with that are pretty damaging. But yeah, no, it's not Nancy Pelosi's kids that are going over to,
Right. Hunter
fight
Biden.
For Ukraine.
Hunter Biden didn't pick up arms and go to Iraq at however age he was, right? It was other people's kids, right? So
did you see what his laptop password was?
No, don't.
You don't know? Oh my god.
It's so funny. So the guy who owns the Mac shop is like writing a book. Of course he is. Which get that bag. I think it's whatever. Do whatever you want. But there's like a little excerpt that was published in the New York Times, or I'm sorry, not the New York Times, and the New York Post. And apparently, Hunter Biden's laptop password was anal fuck 69.
No.
Yes.
Just a little fun.
Can he be more cliche?
No.
No.
I don't think it could have been more just perfect.
Well, the military thing, I want to say one thing about the military thing, because this is hard for a lot of people to hear because often, especially if you're not a leftist person who's running around spouting leftism, you're expected to just have this reverence for military service. And I think the thing you have to remember about the military is always the extension of the government. That's always what it is. So people who are in the military, like if you're in Nazi Germany and you're in the military, you're on the wrong side. You're a bad guy. That's what you might be conscripted and forced to go be the bad guy, but like you're not getting kudos for being on that side, right? And when the United States government is behaving justly and doing just things around the world or whatever, or if you're fighting a war, we've never really fought a war of self-defense with the exception of part of World War II and the fighting the Japanese, right? When you're doing that, you're protecting America, and you're like, it is noble, right? But as the government becomes worse and worse and worse and worse, there's a slow slide. Eventually, if the government goes on to become the Empire in Star Wars, you become a stormtrooper. That's what you become. So the idea that we should be like, oh, you're in the military, therefore like you're about freedom and protecting the Constitution and whatever, like that is not always true. In fact, in many cases, it's becoming less and less true. The worse our government gets, and the more anti-American America's government gets, then the more anti-American the actions of the military become, and your involvement in them is not honorable, right? So I have a lot of sympathy for people who get caught up in the, and I know people, and I was almost caught up in the post 9/11 joining the military. Like I got very close to joining the military post 9/11 because I wanted to go defend. My perception of it was, oh my God, we're under attack. We have to go defend. Like I totally get that, but you really have to double check. Are you doing good if you're being sent to the Middle East to fight in wars that have basically just created the problem? Are you really helping?
I mean, hindsight with that war is 2020 though. I mean, when I was like 11, I was 11 years old when 9/11 happened, and like I was like 11 years old, like hoping that we like nuked Afghanistan. Granted, that's like that's like an 11-year-old perspective for sure. But like again, there were plenty of people that thought that they were doing the right thing, and only after more and more information coming out, learn kind of how they were misled and how so many people died needlessly for a war that should have never started. But you can't blame people for being misled by the fucking government. I mean, it happens constantly.
Right. That's why I'm saying I got sympathy for it, but you got to understand that like this is something that we need to start checking. So we need to start, like, I don't have any sons, but if I was raising a sons like 50 years ago, I might have raised a son to say like, oh, being in the military is an honorable, respectful thing. Like it's maybe not 50 because we were in Vietnam then, but whatever. Like a long time ago, it was okay. This is a good thing and it's an honorable. Now I would probably say, you know what, be careful, because here's a list of what the U.S. has done militarily. Here's what they've been up to. Do you really want to be part of this? It's not necessarily an honorable thing, whether you get duped into it or not. I mean, I just read Scott Horton's Enough Already, which is about the war on terror. And another great book along these lines is Max Blumenthal's, what's it called? Management of Savagery. Max is on the left, but Scott Horton is a libertarian. Both of them go in depth into the history of the U.S. Involvement in operations overseas and how they've created the problem, how the war on terror perpetuates terror and is an intentional misdirection and farce to further other interests. And like, I wouldn't know that if I was 18.
You could also make the argument though that like this is another part of like demoralization of a nation in order to foment the kind of malcontent and lack of pride in one's nation that would lead people to not feeling like it's worth defending. I think that things like a strong military is important. I mean, there is for all the like horrific things that our military has done, there are plenty of others that are amazing and that are necessary. I've got to hand it to them because I honestly respect it. But I used to, before I became an internet outlaw, I actually worked for a government contractor that was a military contractor that worked in missile defense, and I just crunched the numbers for them. I counted the beans, but plenty of people have been like, "Oh, her association with that one military contractor means she's like," I'm like, bro, like I was like small potatoes. But like the stuff that my programs that I counted the beans for that they were working on was like missile defense and things like that. I mean, like are truly incredible like things that keep our homeland and keep our like the actual nation of the United States like safe. Like it's incredible stuff. There's no, in my opinion, there's no great answer for this for a very clear problem that we do have, but our military does do amazing things, and it's 100% necessary. And again, demoralization of a nation is fomenting distrust in all of its institutions and leading people to believe that they're, beyond repair. And there are quite a few institutions that I kind of do believe are beyond repair, but I think a strong national military is not one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I agree. I mean, by the way, my background was also military industrial complex, so I was part of the problem. Like that's I get that. I'm not convinced that the military is salvageable. I mean, they're going woke, and I think if the central government goes woke, and goes leftist, they will become the enforcers of a leftist government.
These are often the loudest people, though. Always. I mean, I know it's small progress, but the Navy just removed Ibram Kendi's book, from their recommended reading for the Navy. I mean, that's
it was on the recommended reading list for the Navy.
Oh yeah, how to be anti-racist. Yeah, but they just removed it. The pendulum swings. It has swung quite far to the left. I personally I still maintain a very high level of optimism for the future of this nation and for just like the humanity in general. And I think that the pendulum is swinging the other way. And part of that is subverting the, indoctrination of children into the, government-run institutions from Cradle-to-Career, cradle-to-career.gov. Just look it up, c2c.gov. If you continue to undermine these things and disallow them from bringing more people into that machine and create independent thinkers and just keep having babies, and I say that not having my own children. I'd love to have my own children someday. But
you heard it, guys.
Oh God, don't start this. No. I don't go on the internet looking for dates. I'll be quite honest. I don't go on the internet looking for love. But honestly, I'm like, personally, anybody who might idealize me in your head, no, just don't. But at the same time, like these sort of things that are happening, it will continuously make the pendulum, like it's a pendulum for a reason. And things do seem quite bleak right now. Again, the loudest actors, both in the literal and metaphorical sense, the loudest actors say the most and have a big say and are driving people to behave and enact certain rules and recommend certain reading in the Navy, for example. But again, these sort of things were taking place largely without people paying attention to them and calling attention to them. And as more people are finding alternative platforms to continue on and continue bringing attention to it, as more pressure is put on, as more people are taking office, hopefully that will actually subvert the status quo. These sort of things are crucial and are happening constantly. In Texas the other day,
I hope so.
In Texas the other day, I mean, school board elections happened across Texas, and like it was overwhelmingly conservative, people taking over school boards in Texas. And again, I'm not saying that just because someone happens to lean more conservative right now that they're automatically the best, person for whatever job. And I think losing yourself in the dichotomy of the left and right is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. And I've completely fallen into that false dichotomy plenty of times, and I try to catch myself on it. But there are things that are happening in local areas that are going to make big impacts across the nation. And I think people are also realizing that maybe you shouldn't be aiming to run for, the Senate or Congress. I'm not saying that people shouldn't. I think you have to be a special level of sociopath to run for federal government at this point. But people who are running for local offices, who are taking back their school boards, who are taking back their city councils and things, who knew how much power a city council had until 2020? I never did. Those sort of things are going to have a major impact on your actual community, where you're going to be able to see immediate improvements. And I think that's huge. So I'm overwhelmingly optimistic for the future still.
I like that you're focused on local stuff. Yeah, I mean, you're probably more optimistic about the future than I am, but that's okay. You can be more optimistic. One thing I like is people recognizing the difference between America and the American government, and trying to save the values of America is not the same thing as having to take over the American government. And that might mean in your local community running for a school board and then doing your thing, and separating out the actions directed by people in Washington from what it means to be American.
Well, again, they want nationless, borderless, religionless, genderless blobs But again, there's nothing wrong with having pride in one's nation or where you come from and fostering a sense of community. That's like the exact opposite of what they want, but it's like one of the most powerful things you can do.
Yep.
They don't want it. Yep. All right. Any final? I realized I kept you guys longer than I expected to. I just looked at the time, so I apologize. But any final thoughts, Juliet or Elle? Either one.
Fuck Discord.
I second that.
And to anybody who got banned today on my, in the wake of my Discord getting banned, sorry.
Well, remind people where they can find you.
SomeBitchToldMe.com, gab.com/SomeBitchIKnow, t.me/SomeBitchIKnow. I don't know, just, anywhere.
All that. Just look up Some Bitch I Know on.
Just,
on
yeah,
literally, yeah.
And then twitch.tv/Ellis for the way, because they don't allow the word bitch.
Mm.
Wow.
Juliet, where can they find you?
You can find me on Gab, TruthSeeker 8487. And funny enough, if you're not sick of me yet today, I will be on the Independence Gang tonight at 10 p.m. So,
cool. Awesome.
Find me there.
I forgot to read a super chat, so I'm going to get in trouble. Let me just read it. I, for one, this is from Johnny Boy Quickdraw. I, for one, think postmodern indigenous marionette sculpting is a perfectly valid college degree. I don't know what your problem is, Carter. Seriously. Yes. Well, you may borrow your own money to go get that degree, Johnny Boy. All right. Thank you both for joining. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And I'm glad I had both of you together.
Yeah, fun.
It was very fun.
It was a fun conversation. And don't forget to check out both of these women's work online and wherever Elle's going to be after Discord.
Who knows?
Go find her there. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for sticking around until the end. If you're new to Unsafe Space, check out our deep content library that includes discussions with everyone from James Lindsay to Brett Weinstein. And please consider helping to fund our work by visiting unsafespace.com/donate. You can find us on a variety of social media platforms, and you can find a community of like-minded individuals on our Unsafe Space Discord server, which is open to financial supporters at any level. We hope to see you there.
Warning. This is an unsafe space. Dangerous ideas have been detected. The content of this production may be upsetting to Brian Stelter. Please do not expose him to it. For completely legitimate reasons, Taylor Lawrence is requesting any information you may have about the following individuals. The Twitter subroutine appears to be malfunctioning. Pay no attention to it. Did you know that the word liberty is a dog whistle for insurrectionists? If you think about it, no one should be allowed to express opinions. But don't. Think about it, I mean. That's not your job. Thinking has been scientifically proven to be less efficient than compliance. Science, scientific, and scientifically are registered trademarks of the World Economic Forum. Unauthorized use is prohibited. Computer voice courtesy. Never mind, that last line is fake news. Please disregard it and return to your safe space immediately. There will be cake.